Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Jack Ryan, Season 3, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously Jack's got Cahill's backing and stuff like that, and obviously he finds out that Wright's been, taken off the board. But it's like, yeah, this is kind of like their last Hail Mary, because this is the only way they're going to be able to do what they need to get done to find, obviously after the reveal last episode of, okay, so they're going to launch a weapon, the nuclear weapon, but they're going to make it seem like it was US based, so they're trying to track that down, and I love that. It's like, all right, like the moment you enter the building, you got 15, 20 minutes now that Miller knows you're here, and that's going to pop off into a whole thing of like, he's going to send a team after you. But I love that it's like, wait, 15, 20 minutes? What happened to 15, 20 minutes? It's like, go up, bro. Like, had a lot less time. So, some little switcheroo, Jack's running, and I love that as he's doing that, there's Mike just sitting there because he had ordered something, and it's like, wait, he's like, you ordered something? He's like, you're way too early. And so Mike gets up and starts running too. I'm like, I love this whole sequence. And so the whole point was to get the Czech police to arrest him. That way, Harris and his people couldn't get to Jack first. It's like their jurisdiction kind of counters theirs. So it's like, we have the jurisdiction here and we can kind of ignore your jurisdiction. So it was all kind of a play. Greer called that in. At the same time, you have Alina also grabbing up Radek's wife and daughter. So, but when it comes to I looked at being like, wow, you're a lot faster than I thought. Mike's like, and you're a lot less fun than I thought. So, now working with Alina, they're taking because they were able to narrow down where the missile could have been sent from, like where they're planning on like sending it to from its location last episode. So now it's like, okay, so we have a few places narrowed down on what it could be. And talking to Alina is when they finally figured out what it was. The plan is never to launch it. Basically, they were going to make it explode during like transport on like, make it seem like, hey, like there's a NATO convoy that's happening. They're going to have it explode. They thought they were going to have it at a base, make it look like a nuclear accident, because once again, it's small actions, it's small things here and there supposed to build up to a larger reaction, a war and everything. So this is going to be their pop-off moment. So in that, they have to find this vehicle before it gets to the base, but it turns out it was never going to make it to the base. The plan was they needed a big public enough thing where a whole bunch of casualties would be, and it was going to be this nearby town that has like 20,000 people in it. So that would have been the thing that ends up kicking off. All the while this is happening, Luca, obviously he's boots on the ground with this whole situation, and he gets face to face with Peter, which I was like, well, I know Peter's not like the main dude behind this. Like, that's why I'm confused, because I do believe like he is like a foot soldier in all of this, but like who's at the very, very top, or maybe it kind of was Peter's, like this whole thing was his thing. I mean, once again, bringing back Sokol and everything. I mean, once again, like his connection to this project, how he had to disappear and how he was kind of birthed in this situation, kind of reborn to kind of be able to do this now, in the situation he's in. Because we learned from Radek's wife when she's talking to Alina that everything was planned, just like Pete. Like the fact is, Peter and her mom getting together was planned. It's like he needed a person that had enough money and connections that would eventually lead to all this. Sadly, he even admits it later on, Alina wasn't planned. She was unexpected. And it's like, and she's like, I don't even want to hear you talk about, oh, like you loved me and stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, it's the thing of my mission came first and foremost. But that was the whole point that Radek's wife was saying, like, at the end of the day, he will sacrifice anyone, but they also believed in the cause. But it's like, yeah, but he will sacrifice you. You're even saying that he would sacrifice me, his own daughter. So what makes you think he won't sacrifice you, your daughter? Like, do you want your daughter to know who you are? Who both of her parents really are? But like, Radek's wife is just kind of like, well, my daughter would know that we're patriots or whatever. She even had this online where she was basically like, I felt bad for you every time I saw you being so close to your father, talking to Alina, never knowing who her father really was. You never saw his true colors. And it's like, yeah, you probably never see him again, but the rest of your life you'd always live in fear of him coming after you because of what you know. You will always be a loose end, essentially. So, but circling back, Pietro knows exactly who, Luca, the moment he meets him, it's like, oh, I remember you. I carried your photo with me. He's like, yeah, I'm the one that got away. You thought you were here meeting your ghost. In actuality, you are mine. You think Alexi's the one that brought you into the fold? Luca is like, no, it was me. I've known you've been working with the Americans, and I brought you in close because I know that there was nothing you could do to stop it. Because for him, once again, this is about making Russia stronger. It's like, it's a small country ran by small men, and we're going to make it so much more. Birth it in, turn it into the country it should have always been, that it was once before, but lost its way. We can put it back on the right path and make it even greater than it was before. That's his, extremist patriotism, And I have to stress that word. There are a lot of extremists who are patriots. Not saying every patriot's an extremist, but in this case, he is an extremist who is he's a patriot who's an extremist, and his beliefs are obviously he's willing to kill so many people to get the end result that they're looking for. And since we're right there on the subject of Peter, let's kind of stay on that. Luca ends up shooting him in the leg because Radek's wife eventually told her where exactly Peter was, and by the time she got there, it's like, the wound, he had an artery that was severed, but it's enough time with the belt tied around it to stop the bleeding, you could get him to a hospital. But for Alina, it's like, I figured as much. I was like, she's gonna let him die. Even if you try to pump him for information, he's too invested in this that he'd never tell anyone the truth. So there's no point of keeping him alive. He's played his part. He would die without saying anything anyway. So there's probably never going to be getting any other information out of him. And for Alina, it's just like, I need to get rid of you, which is so sad. It's like, not only is it your father, so that's a complicated thing on its own, but this is still, knowing this is the person that was the closest to you, the person you thought you had left in this world you can trust, and now you find out your father is this monster, and that everything about your life, everything that you earned, he's saying he earned it for you. Everything in your life was a manipulation. Your mother and him getting together, you were an accident, and you weren't planned. It was just kind of it happened, and you made me feel something I hadn't felt in so long, because he was driven by his mission for so long. That's all he needed. That's all he felt until Alina came. But for her, it's like, regardless of it all. And he's like, yeah, I left that letter to you. You may not understand it now, but one day you will. But she's like, no, I won't. And throws it in the fire. It's like, I refuse any more manipulation. Regardless of it, I don't want any more of your wasted words from you. Unbuckles the belt on his leg and lets him bleed out and die. And even went out to Luca and be like, yeah, he didn't make it. And Luca didn't say anything, just kind of looking like, huh. I guess he legitimately wasn't expecting, I think he wasn't expecting her to just straight up kill her own father. And it's like, huh, okay. I guess it's and maybe even in his own mind, it's like, well, I guess I underestimated you. And the sad thing is, maybe it's she's a little bit more like her father than even she would want to admit. But it's yeah. And maybe that was your undoing. It's saddest thing is you died knowing that your daughter let you die. She essentially helped kill you, and it's right. And she would never know what your final words is. And maybe eventually she will have regrets about that, but that's a whole complicated thing. And Alina, it taught Alina a very horrible lesson. Horrible lesson in that it's a lesson that I think will make her a better leader in the future. But it's always assuming someone's because it's later on they're like, oh, Luca, we gotta be careful. We don't know, he might be playing both sides. And she was like, I'm assuming everyone's playing both sides. It's yeah, kind of caught in a situation with Russia and the Americans like you are. It's understandable why you'd have that perspective on things. But let's kind of backtrack a little bit. We had the Miller side of things, because obviously you had Harris and his people. Harris in particular, it's you were brought into this fold, you're used by Miller, but you don't even know what's going on. You haven't been told, because Miller knows what's going on, but he's still doing his political dance, trying to save face type of situation. And Wright tried to tell him, this is not the time to get all, worrying about political. This is, things are dire on the ground. But all Miller does is he dismisses her. He's like, yeah, Ryan's, a traitor, and anyone working with him is an issue. issue. And it's like, right, you're not listening to your operatives who are on the ground trying to tell you what's what. We are literally telling you like things are bad, but he won't listen. He's so far up his own ass. But, which obviously, I love that situation where she got a message from Greer, which I love that spy stuff of, oh yeah, it's saved in the drafts. And I was like, oh yeah, of course that's how you do it. Because, hey, you can't read an email that was never sent or received. So I was like, interesting. As long as it sits in the drafts, it's fine. I'm sure there might be some like technical way around that, but it's like, unless you got the actual access to it, But yeah, you kind of and probably afterwards you delete it from your draft. So like there is zero records of it. Maybe there's some metadata about it. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I like that spycraft stuff of like just saving it in your drafts. Called up, was it like a Colonel Ramos or maybe it's someone that Greer knows, and she's got her doing her power play. Well, before we'll talk about the aftermath of Wright's situation before we go back to like how everything popped off. But with Wright's situation, she had a power play and had Ramos in the room explaining everything to the vice president about like, yo, what popped off, and it's like, wait, we knew about this? Oh yeah, like, and Miller, instead of bringing in and helping and working with Ryan, who's on the ground, who knows what's going on, instead made him a traitor and like sent a team after him. And it's like, yeah, the vice president, like, I didn't authorize this. It's like, yeah, Miller did it on his own. He was making moves. And it's like, yeah, he looks extremely bad. Now Wright is the one that's going to basically be, I don't know if like Miller got fired in that moment. Doesn't seem like it, but it's like Wright's the one kind of handling things of the operation on this side of the board. But Miller really did not look happy. It's like, oh, you came in, you kind of like made me look like shit. All right, bet. So we'll see if I think Wright would have like some she's gonna probably have to watch out for some political daggers in her back. I mean, in the political sense, but also maybe there might be some literal, he'll probably try to fling some shit her way as well, but we'll see. But getting to like the very like, oh, like this is what's going down. Obviously the convoy is, of the NATO convoy is doing its thing, but the person with the nuclear weapon is on their way too. So it's like, how do we handle this? How do we stop them? But then Jack kind of gets an idea. It's like, there's one more tunnel before this person reaches the town. So, all right, let's have the vehicle start slowing down so this person can catch up to you. The plan was like the last vehicle. And I think that speaks, well, because I think his is the only one that actually had the colonel was in. I think his is the only one that actually has the nuclear material. I mean, that has the, whatever material that they were transporting. It might have been nuclear material, whatever the case may be. It might have just been weaponry, ammunition, stuff like that. But anyway, turn it sideways, and they left it in a tunnel, and they're booking it on foot. But Jack is like, man, they don't have enough time. Got one of the last convoy vehicles, went back into the tunnel for him, because of course Jack would, because it's like, right, these are soldiers, these are good people who are putting their trust in him, followed his risky plan, and it's like, I'm asking them to make a sacrifice, and they did what I asked them to. Like, I can't like leave them in there to die. So the point is, they hit the power grid so it goes dark in the bridge. So I was like, right. So he, especially because the vehicles turn sideways and the lights aren't on. So like, obviously the vehicle's off. So if it was turned face forward, I mean, you turn it sideways so he has no choice but to run into it, but also so that he doesn't see the headlights potentially reflecting. Like, you want to give him as little preparation time as possible because he's booking it and he's not slowing down. So he's trying to turn on the lights. Jack's got in the tunnel. He picked up the colonel and that other soldier. The guy in with the nuclear material runs into the vehicle, explodes, and it's just like, you can literally see like where the mountain hill that the tunnel is under, you could just see it just like sink in and just collapse. Luckily Jack and the others got out of there. It's like, Jack is always cutting things so close. You end up gritting your teeth because of it, but luckily it worked out on that front. It's like, okay, everything's good, Jack's okay, we stopped the nuclear material, so that phase of the plan is stopped, but there's still more at play. So we have Alina, Greer, Mike, and Jack, along with Luca, making their way to Russia. Because it's like, okay, so, for Jack, it's like, you could have stopped everything at Matoska. He's like, no, I couldn't. And he's just like, I don't understand. Because he's like, yeah, because tens of thousands of people would die. He's like, no, but Yeah, they could have, but they didn't because you did in fact stop it. It's like, I don't understand you. And it's like, okay, but because for him, it's like, this was the final thing that needed to be pop off before we lead to a full-blown war. And Jack's like, well, I have no plans. I have nothing like planned out, like what the next move, what we're going to do. And Luca's like, well, you do. You have me. Now, what that entails, who knows? But it's going to be interesting to see because I do believe next episode's like, I think it's called Moscow's Rules because they are in Moscow. And how you diffuse this situation, how do you stop what's kind of already in motion. Once again, like, I'm still unclear whether, and maybe that's just my own fault for being an idiot, but like I said, it doesn't seem like Peter's like the head honcho of this, and I don't think Alexei is either, but maybe it's a combined effort of like, right, one side of this whole thing, Peter has been removed from the equation, there's still Alexei, and he's in his position, and you don't really have any evidence tying him to all this, so how do you really stop him, because all the people that could potentially say, once again, Peter was never going to, Radek was a pawn in all of this, so there's no, like, he was probably excluded from some of the information, so even he didn't know what was what. So, who knows how much they have if there's anything to really prove Alexei's behind this, and maybe there's someone above him pulling the strings, like I said, and maybe it's just him and Pietro at the top. Only 2 episodes left in the season, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the penultimate episode of the season, what ends up going down, where it leads us, and what it sets up for the season finale, but we'll wait. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.